The Bureau of Gender Affairs is satisfied with updates of the island's national gender policy. 3 institutions team up to work to improve housing conditions for the less fortunate, and Dominica prepares to celebrate Emancipation Day 2014. Thanks for joining us for another edition of National Focus. I'm Tasia Floissac.
And I'm Kerdisha. Stay with us for details of the headline stories and others after this.
Did you know the Caribbean Court of Justice is 2 courts in one? The CCJ has 2 functions: an original jurisdiction, which deals with your right to move between CARICOM countries freely and your right to move your money and your business. This is the basis of the CARICOM Single Market and Economy, CSME, and the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, and an appellate jurisdiction to hear appeals from courts of those countries which decide to use it as their final court of appeal and no longer go to the Privy Council. All CARICOM member states who have signed the agreement establishing the CCJ are members of the CCJ.
Thanks for staying with us. The Bureau of Gender Affairs says it's satisfied with the quality of discussion leading to the update of the island's national gender policy. On June 25th, the Bureau hosted its final stakeholder consultation on the final draft of the policy on gender equity and equality. Director of the Bureau, Rosie Brown, was speaking to GIS News on Wednesday.
We feel satisfied that there has been widespread enough discussion. In fact, I think there are some things that had happened since the previous policy. One of the things I can say we were happy to know is that in the previous dispensation, previous arrangement, we have in place in every ministry, in a number of ministries and other government bodies, what we call gender focal points, who are supposed to be ensuring that the areas of the policy within their divisions are implemented, of course, with input and assistance of the Bureau. We also had, and since this in the acceleration effort under the project of acceleration, we have now in place a national gender advisory committee.
Brown says the review of the original policy of 2006 was absolutely necessary at this time.
What happened, however, was the need to review this 2006 policy with a view to make it more relevant, so to speak, to current situation, to incorporate emerging trends and emerging issues.
According to Brown, consultations with stakeholders was vital for the accurate review of the policy.
A policy as such would, especially when you're talking about a gender policy, would really impact lives, or would lives of women and men, boys and girls from all sectors. And so the stakeholders would have been, as I said earlier, government personnel, officials, because we did have a consultation with parliamentarians. We also met permanent secretaries and senior officers, administrative and technical officers. We met sector organizations by sectors. So we met people in the health sector. We met people in the education sector. We also met people in the legal and judicial, if we have to call it, sector. We also had broad-based discussion at the community level. We had district consultations where we invited a range of cross-section of kind of community groups and organizations to discuss and to review, to look at the previous policy, where what needs to be updated, and so it really was a broad base, and we can say these are all the sectors who were involved in contributing to the policy as such.
Faith-based groups, men's and women's groups, as well as youth were also engaged in talks. The director says much more work remains to be done once the policy is approved and implemented, but changes are visible.
We think there's a lot to be done to really get the policy, if this policy, the previous one, and this one that we are putting forward to be implemented, to be approved and implemented. So if that can be done, and the necessary resources, and also very importantly, support by the relevant institutions, especially those who have the authority to provide the necessary resources and the encouragement and support to really drive the implementation, the Bureau would be very satisfied of a job well done.
The Housing Division has teamed up with the Youth Development Division and National Employment to improve the housing conditions of the less fortunate. GIS News visited one of the project sites in Yampis last week, where 11 young men are employed on the construction of these apartments.
What is being done, the Youth Development Division, the National Employment Program of the Ministry of Trade, and of course, Housing Division have come together. We have collaborated on an effort to provide skills to young men and women throughout Dominica. So what is happening right now, we are in Yampis, and what you're seeing happening is young men learning construction skills, masonry skills, all right, carpentry skills, social and related skills, business skills, all of those sessions that will make them a wholesome individual, providing them with skills for their life. And that is what we're talking about when we're talking about sustainable development, when we're talking about national employment, we're talking about training, skills training at the highest level. So the young people, or the young men and women, are employed. They have been afforded a facilitator, and they are learning to develop a skill that will earn them money, that they will be able to assist themselves and their families in the future. So these young men are helping the society by building, construction, repairing homes for people who cannot afford it.
Instructor Serge Blackmore explained to GIS News the extent of the training provided to the young adults.
What I'm doing right now is actually teaching the guys different skills in the construction business. They're learning measurements, leveling, squaring, safety, masonry, carpentry, steel bending. They'll be doing tile laying also, and painting.
Delbert Francis is one of the youths employed on the project.
This program has benefited a lot to me. Since I got here, I've learned several things about building houses. And I'd like to thank the government of Dominica, the Housing Revolution Program, Youth Division, and all the others that help to make sure that this is possible.
Meantime, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Employment, Corinne Privot, is satisfied with the progress made thus far on this and similar projects across the country.
I think this has been an excellent collaboration. This is our first time working together on a project, and as far as I can see, this project went very well. Through the National Employment Program and the apprenticeship program of the ministry, we've been able to engage these young people in building, construction, skills training under the supervision of the Youth Division and the Housing Division. And from all reports and from what we have seen, this program has gone very well. You've heard from the young people, they've learned a lot. And the National Employment Program, we are very pleased to be able to assist the young people to receive that sort of hands-on training. And there are a number of other programs that we are running in some of the other areas. We have the stone cutting program, we have had the hospitality program, but this building skills program, construction skills program, has been a very successful program. I'm very happy to see the impact and the results of this program on the lives of the people in the communities.
In more news, a Minister for Social Services, the Honorable Gloria Shillingford, has challenged members within the family unit to make greater efforts in carrying out their responsibilities. Honorable Shillingford was speaking at the annual general meeting of the Grow to Home for the Homeless on Monday. The minister endorsed Honorable Prime Minister Roosevelt's scared statement that the state has a Christian obligation to the less fortunate of the country. However, Honorable Shillingford said it does not negate the fact that much more must be done for such persons with a family unit.
It always amazes me that sometimes when certain persons die, that's the only time you find out who their relatives really are. And I see it a lot. I attend quite a lot of funerals. And sometimes I say, but did that person have so many relatives? And you know a lot of them also come from abroad. And it is the only time too, because they come to social services, community development, and gender affairs to complain that certain things were given and they are now in control of that. And even what government gives, sometimes then we see the family members take control of that too.
Honorable Shillingford encouraged families to assist their less fortunate relatives in any possible means, no matter how small it may be.
Let me say, while we have our families on earth, while they are alive, if the only thing we can do to them is to give them a meal, let us do that. We have lots of clothes, so we can give that to them also. But sometimes circumstances allow them to go to a home. And when they go to those homes, let us not leave the responsibility entirely upon the board and upon other well-wishers. Let us take our responsibilities also, that whatever we have and whatever those folks have, and the Prime Minister has spoken about it already, so I won't go into details, but whatever we can give, let us give so that we can help in the upkeep of our people here.
The National Cultural Council and the Division of Culture have joined forces with numerous stakeholders for the successful staging of this year's Emancipation Day celebrations. August 1st, 2014 will mark the 180th anniversary of the abolition of slavery in Dominica and the 200th anniversary of the death of Jacko, Dominica's paramount Maroon chief. Acting Chief Cultural Officer and Chairman of the National Cultural Council, Jacinta David, welcomed the Nationals at the opening launch of Emancipation Day celebrations.
This is a day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice, for He has made us glad. On behalf of the Cultural Division and the National Cultural Council, I welcome you to the official launching of this year's Emancipation celebration. Emancipation celebrations is usually an annual event to commemorate the abolition of slavery here in Dominica. It is a celebration of freedom, a celebration of the struggle of our ancestors, the Maroons, and others to abolish slavery. It is an occasion to pay tribute to those who have given up their lives in that struggle and to those who died in the horrors of slavery.
A major highlight of the celebrations is the Golden Drum Awards ceremony, Dominica's most prestigious cultural award. Scheduled for July 30th, the ceremony is a collaborative effort between the National Cultural Council and the Cultural Division. The observance of Emancipation Day continues with an Emancipation lecture on July 31st, which will take the form of a panel discussion at the Barracoon Building in Roseau at 7:30 p.m. On Emancipation Day, a historic walk will take place beginning at the Barracoon Building, proceeding along the Dame Eugenia Charles Boulevard to the Roseau cruise ship berth, where flowers will be scattered in the ocean in honor of those who died during the Atlantic Middle Passage. From there, the walk proceeds to the Roseau Market for a short address and libation, and then to the Emancipation Monument at People's Park for a special ceremony and concert. Speaking at the opening, the Honorable Minister for Culture, Justina Charles, expressed that it is important for nationals to embrace their heritage.
We must always remember that the resistance of the Maroon and the slaves here in Dominica and other Caribbean countries played an important part in hastening the end to slavery. Emancipation celebration thus allows us to pay tribute to those who died for our freedom and to celebrate that freedom.
The Honorable Minister noted that the Negmawa monument erected last year and the Barakun building serve as significant tribute to the struggle and resistance by Maroons and others to the system of plantation slavery.
Last year, we unveiled the Emancipation Negmawa monument in Roseau. This monument is a paramount symbol which serves to remind us or to stimulate thinking or curiosity about emancipation from slavery and the role of the Maroons. This year, we give some focus to the Barakun buildings and the Old Market, two important sites associated with slavery. I am pleased that on Emancipation Day, a series of events will be held to give some focus to these sites and what they represent. And for the first time, we will offer floral tribute to those who died in the Middle Passage.
Emancipation Day is celebrated in many former British colonies in the Caribbean. The Slavery Abolition Act of 1833 ended slavery in the British Empire on August 1, 1834. Emancipation celebrations involve a variety of education, cultural, community, and outdoor events that complement the celebration of this historic achievement. GIS News will bring you more details in a subsequent newscast.
Before we leave, here's an announcement from the Ministry of Employment, Trade, Industry and Diaspora Affairs. Tenders are invited for the purchase of a Suzuki Grand Vitara 2004 vehicle registration number GA246. Tenders should be submitted in a sealed envelopes to the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Employment, Trade, Industry and Diaspora Affairs, Financial Center Roseau, Dominica. Deadline for receipt of the tenders is August 8, 2014. And as the English news, McPherson said Luce is next with the Creole highlights.
Alors tout le monde, bienvenue à cette nouvelle en créole. Pour moi, c'est McPherson Saint-Louis. Premièrement, division culture officiellement lancé célébration Emancipation. Célébration là qui tient tous les années, qui a commémoré abolition esclavage. L'année ça là qui voit anniversaire 10 l'année la mort chef nèg marron Jaco et puis 100 avec 80 l'année depuis esclavage abandonné. Plusieurs activités qui prennent place pour célébration là qui a couru le 16 juillet pour le 10 août. Ministre Culture, Honorable Justin Charles, est un parmi officier qui a doué ces cérémonies aujourd'hui pour te lancer ces activités-là.
Observation Emancipation, célébration Emancipation, sont bien qui bien important pour nous en Dominique, parce que nous connaissons nous-mêmes nous esclavage avec nous savons ça porter on dit libération pour nous en Dominique pour grand-maman nous avec tout le monde qui était là avant nous avec nous ces jeunes gens avec ça qui va venir après nous supposer ça comprendre ça qui fait un temps qui passé où là nous y là comment nous sorti où là nous téye pour vivre là nous y et pour ça même aider nous continuer la vie nous savons sacrifice c'est grand-maman nous avec toutes ces monde avant nous faire nous pas à quitter tradition ça là moi nous pas à quitter histoire ça là moi so mon quoi Emancipation sont les nous ni pour passer information contre slavery et libération nous bah moun qui pas connaître qui partait pour côté qu'à vivre nous pas à quitter ça nous ni pour faire yo savent comment l'inviter en bas esclavage et comment nous même libérer à présent.
Ministre Charles fait parole significant célébration là et puis comment gouvernement qui continue supporter
tous les années c'est tout à bout GIS pour commencement à où yo ka fait un pile activité où là yo ka parler contre history où là nous ka garder compte place history qui nous style ni en Dominique ça bagay qui significant pour nous depuis un temps slavery so nous ka try préserver ces qualités bien ça là comme Barakuna comme People's Park là nous savons l'année passée nous mettait un monument maroon en roseau so toutes ces bitins ça là nous supposé qu'à 10 enfants nous sans yoyer pour yo du bout là avec qui significance ini en la vie actuellement so c'est pour ça mon gouvernement que toujours continuer insister division culture pour make sure nous ça quitter ça c'est en yon dans toutes ces bitins culture là nous supposé quitter vivant so nous que continuer ba si pour nous yo besoin là.
En autre nouvelle, compagnie privée Caribé qui tient un workshop qui concerne la sécurité pour opération plan aérien. Compagnie là a commémoré mois en santé et puis sécurité en mai et puis pour ça là attention qu'a mettre à se travailler et puis management opération aérien. Selon officier opération Kendall Austri, workshop là c'est pour sensibiliser management et puis travailler supervisor ça fait sécurité industrielle opération, bonne santé et puis manière pour empêcher accident même si ça fait manière pour contrôler. Moun la qui a une position contre General Manager Paul Moses fait parole qui police compagnie là qui a deal et puis industrial oil et puis distribution et bien important pour chain workshop comme ça. Moses fait parole qui compagnie là investe autant l'argent en plan là comme ça, il est obligé faire bagaille chain opération et puis un bon standard de sécurité. Et aussi fait parole comme un workshop là bien en ordre selon agreement Dominique et puis Venezuela en bas PDV Caribbean. José Perez de Venezuela qui n'a autant d'expérience qu'à faciliter workshop de semaine là. On a nouvelle, Teacher Dominica a tapé à vie pour réfléchir et puis faire recherche pendant qu'il a fait travail ailleurs. Député chef officier d'éducation Dr. Jeffrey Blaise bâti chassé avec cela pendant un workshop qui a attendu qui organisé par l'association Teacher Dominic. Président de l'association Sylvia Nicolas qui a bien supporté avec Dr. Blaise.
Inita nous avons retreat. Pour chiuni ce retreat ça là pour assise pour aller en dedans pour faire moi c'est un bon monde moi c'est un mauvais monde c'est même pour teacher moi c'est un bon teacher moi c'est un mauvais teacher avec une time knowledge ces jours ça là ou pas ça dit ou connaît tout bite avec une enfants actuellement qui need autant l'esprit so les yo venir yo mande au check sur on ni pour be on top of it ou peut connaître li mais OK dit ces enfants là OK moi que research li moi que faire quelque chose avec bita yo ka qui action research ou ni un problème à l'école OK à nous garder école ou ni enfants qui venir toujours tard à l'école et va ou quand là ou quand bougonner ou toujours tard non c'est ou quand réfléchir que dit quitter ma research et va la research OK ouais moi je sais pas am fol zafa là ou ça il pas ni manger il pas ni c'est marcher ni pour marcher les am venir l'école il pas ni hard pour mettre ou ça il several problems ces enfants ça là sonné so quand teacher OK aider les enfants ça là.
Et puis finalement, plusieurs jeunesses en Waouzo qui ont reçu traitement sinon un programme jouer tennis qui est lancé en Dominique Club. Programme ça là qui a couru pour saison somme là, qui a appelé support National Employment Program. Sinon, on parole qui sorti. Pendant ces jeunesses là qui a tapé traitement, programme là qui a fait provision moun tapé travail aussi. Faciliter ton programme là indicateur. Car oui, merci gouvernement pour faire provision pour ces jeunesses là apprendre à jouer tennis. Programme là qui a couru pour 8 semaines, quand a été jeunesse 6 pour 18 l'année. Quand a fait parole qui National Employment Program, quand joué pas ailleurs faciliter programme là et puis il bien plaisir pour ça. Messieurs mesdames, ça c'est tout pour nous faire là, Creole pour à présent. Non moi c'est McPherson Luce. Au revoir.
Coming up next is your tip of the day.
Did you know the Caribbean Court of Justice is 2 courts in 1? The CCJ has 2 functions, an original jurisdiction, which deals with your right to move between CARICOM countries freely and your right to move your money and your business. This is the basis of the CARICOM Single Market and Economy, CSME, and the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, and an appellate jurisdiction to hear appeals from courts of those countries which decide to use it as their final court of appeal and no longer go to the Privy Council. All CARICOM member states who have signed the agreement establishing the CCJ are members of the CCJ.
You asked for it. See more evidence of development right here on the Government Information Service.
Usually around this time, the season brings piles of rust-skinned fruit to your local grocer. This rust-skinned fruit is none other than pineapple. While pineapples are typically regarded as a sweet fruit, their high acid content can result in canker sores on the tongue. To counteract the acidity of the pineapple flesh, you must balance the high pH using ingredients that are less acidic.
First, select the ripest fruit possible. Ripe pineapples are naturally sweeter and less acidic than those that have not ripened. You can choose a pineapple by selecting one that has a firm and yellow skin and then turning it upside down. Smell the bottom of the pineapple. It should smell aromatic and sweet.
After cutting, rinse the cut pieces you plan to eat to remove some of the acidic juice and sprinkle them with a teaspoon of salt. Salt is highly basic, which counteracts the high pH of the pineapple. Using a small amount of salt won't alter the flavor of the pineapple, but makes it less acidic so it doesn't burn your tongue. And that's all for this edition of National Focus. We always welcome your suggestions and comments. Drop us an email at gis@dominica.gov.dm or visit our website news.gov.dm.
Friend us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/GIS Dominica. You can also catch up on past National Focus newscasts on our GIS Dominica YouTube channel. On behalf of the entire news production team, I'm Kerdisha St. Louis.
And I'm Tasia Floissac. Join us again next time for another edition of National Focus.